The U.S. Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, the judicial powers of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges both of the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Perhaps our Supreme Court should spend some time discussing what their responsibilities are and where their loyalties lie. Our Constitution states above that the judges shall hold their offices during good behavior. Depending on what that language actually means, one might conclude that at least a few of the justices currently serving on the highest court in the land are in violation of the Constitution. Is taking bribes from billionaires the definition of, quote, good behavior, unquote? Is this the refusal to recuse yourself because of your clear conflict of interest, the definition of good behavior? Can good behavior be considered as ruling on cases that are clients of your wife? Is good behavior what is meant by slow walking one of the most significant decisions in our nation's history? That is, whether or not a president has absolute immunity? Did our founding fathers intend to interpret good behavior to mean politicizing the Supreme Court? Let's take a look at the behavior of some of the Supreme Court justices, and perhaps we can decide whether or not they are exhibiting good behavior. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, professes concern about the court's legacy, but he failed to disclose that his wife represents clients that appear before the court. From Politico, and I quote, "The complaint filed by a former colleague, a copy of which was obtained by Politico, accuses the Chief Justice of failing to acknowledge the full extent of his wife's work in his ethical disclosures, presenting her as a salaried employee of a firm rather than one who receives commissions from law firms, some of which have cases before the Supreme Court." Jane Roberts' placement included at least one firm with a prominent Supreme Court practice, according to the complaint, which also includes sworn testimony from Roberts herself, in which she notes the powerful officials, whose agencies have been frequent cases before her husband, for whom she worked. In her testimony, Jane Roberts also noted the benefit of working with senior government officials. Quote, "Successful people have successful friends." In her view, it looks like the key to success is having her husband sit as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Next, we have Neil Gorsuch. From the New York Magazine, and I quote, "As an appellant judge in the 2010s, Neil Gorsuch spent 2 years trying to sell a 40-acre property he co-owned deep in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. Despite the ideal location of this 3,000 square foot log home on the Colorado River, he couldn't find a buyer. But in April of 2017, just 6 days after he was sworn in as a Supreme Court justice, Gorsuch was able to sell the property for an impressive $1.825 million. Gorsuch did not report who purchased the cabin. Brian Duffy, chief executive and chief litigator of the law firm Greenberg Traurig, the 12th largest law firm that has had a good deal of business before the High Court since Gorsuch has joined. Politico counts 22 cases before or presented to the court in which Greenberg Traurig has been named. That includes 12 cases in which Gorsuch's opinion is recorded, in which he cited in favor of Greenberg Traurig's clients 8 times. Then we have Clarence Thomas, who clearly has proven to be the most corrupt Supreme Court justice in history. Not only has he taken numerous expensive gifts without declaring them, he's done so over many years. He and his wife are quite cozy with right-wing billionaires. Please see this link for a complete list of conflicts. Justice Sam Alito's hands are not clean. Justice Samuel Alito is the target of ProPublica's most recent reporting, which found he took a 2008 Alaska fishing trip with billionaire Paul Singer and didn't recuse himself in a 2014 case involving his hedge fund. According to the New Yorker, quote, along with Charles and David Koch and Robert Mercer, Paul Singer is one of the largest financial donors to the Republican political causes. Why does this matter? We are a nation built on the adherence to laws that govern our society. Today, the Supreme Court has the lowest approval rating in over a quarter of a century. It's well deserved, because the court currently has some pretty corrupt members. And now this court is going to determine the next election by refusing to promptly take up Trump's immunity case. This will be the second time in my lifetime that this court will have determined who will be our president. The last time was when they handed the election to George W. Bush over Al Gore. It's time to expand the court and appoint non-corrupt judges. I'm Bob Stannard, and this is The View from My Place.